Are we live? Oh, great. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our talk today. So the topic we'll be discussing today is harmonizing research and design for e-commerce excellence, specifically through the landscape of publishing, or as I like to call it, collaborating to keep the shareholders happy. I kid. So my name's Luke. I'm the user experience researcher for commerce at Condé Nast, and together with my colleague Efi, who I'll let introduce herself shortly, we're going to be taking you through the presentation today. So I'm going to get stuck in, and first I'm going to give you some context around the challenges of e-commerce in a publication space. Before I do, can everyone hear me okay? Great. So the first thing we want to consider in a publication space is balancing brand, audience, and commerce content. So we want to basically minimize the perception that the content is solely driven by affiliate links or sponsored content. We want to maintain trust, editorial authority of the brand while presenting product recommendations in the content. The next thing is diverse user intent. So I'll give you two polar examples. One we call the service user, which we define as basically somebody who's there for the editorial authority, their curation, the content. The other is what we call utility users, and they are basically much more driven by findable, fast, product-focused content. Next, we have commerce product integration. It's important that obviously we integrate product information seamlessly with the narrative content without disrupting the user experience. So we want to ensure that we don't compromise content quality or overwhelm the users. We also need to consider the potential conflicts between commerce goals and editorial priorities. And lastly, commerce performance metrics. So we need to account for both the short and the long term. This is challenging as the customer journeys are often long, multi-touch point, and as well if they're high cost or complex purchases, multi-session. So we need to find the balance between immediate key performance indicators and broader, more intangible impact of content on things like brand loyalty. So now I'm going to hand over to Efi, who'll finally get to introduce herself, and she'll take you through the lens of Condé Nast and the challenges we experience.
Hi all, I'm Efi. Can you hear me okay? Great, thank you. So I'm the Associate Design Director for Commerce at Condé Nast, but most of my background is pure play commerce. I have worked for people like Cocoza and ASOS and High Street and high-end brands and a variety of anything in between, and event activated sales. So I think a big difference between what we do in pure play commerce and what we do at Condé is that in pure play we look at editorial optimization of commerce content, and in Condé the reality is quite the opposite. So we are looking at commerce optimization of editorial content. The user comes to us specifically for articles because this is our DNA. So some of our biggest challenges, number one is that we are a house of brands, so we need to design agnostically and consider the nuances of each vertical, and this is categories and brand identities and expressions. So I'm speaking specifically about considering fashion, beauty, and tech, and we also need to consider multiple territories and locales and how design factors into these decisions, and also everything we create needs to be scalable and we need to deliver it fast. So we constantly have to think of these different permutations before delivering design. Then we need to consider brand balance and how the users perceive us versus what are the user needs. So very often users come to us for two different reasons. They come for inspiration or to help them narrow down their purchase choices. So they want to buy a handbag, they want to buy a dress, but which one? They come to us for that narrowing of the decision making. So within this context, although we are aspirational and everyone wants to see the high-end products and we want to attract the high-end buyers, there are also a lot of users who are seeking more budget-friendly options, and we need to make sure we cater for this. So we need to make sure that we balance between these two extremes. Sometimes what inspires a user doesn't align with what they actually end up buying. Another important aspect is the affiliate product model. So the products that we feature tend to click to affiliate links, which means that we don't own the onward purchase journey, so we have no control over this, and we need to make sure we provide the users with just enough information to be prompted to click through and make a purchase, but to do that they need to leave our site. And then finally ensuring that the editorial voice and the curation is visible. So predominantly the users come to us, our UPC is the editorial curation what the editors propose as their inspiring ideal products, verifying and testing. So product endorsement is really important, and it is very important that we highlight throughout our pages. The voice of the editor needs to be visible at every touch point. Our users tell us that Vogue is the Bible. They say if it is featured in Vogue, it is in Vogue. And this is a fact, but we also need to make sure that the trust, that is something that Condé Nast has taken a very long time to achieve, is something we keep and hold on to really tight, because the user trust is something that is very, very easy to lose if our product recommendations don't come across as credible.
Okay, back to me. So how are we going to overcome some of those challenges? Well, by leaning on the perfect partnership. So I'm going to talk about how user research and design work together from my perspective. So the first thing to mention is we're highly embedded in the design team. We're fully integrated. We're fully integrated. Apologies, there we go. We're fully integrated with the design team's workflow, enabling seamless partnership and alignment with design cadences. Also, much like UX design, we also have a balanced roadmap. So the roadmap addresses both business as usual and strategic projects, ensuring research informs both immediate and long-term project strategies and design efforts. Also, to work at scale, we democratize research. So we empower the designers to actually conduct their own research so that they can basically engage with the users directly themselves and run at pace with, of course, structured quality control checkpoints throughout. And lastly, constant collaboration. So user research and design collaborate closely through regular check-ins, workshops, joint reviews to ensure the user insights directly shape design decisions. Now, I'm going to briefly talk about the role of user research in product development, but before then, just a little clarification for anyone who's not aware of user research, what we do. So I presume some of you might think, isn't it just market research with glitter thrown on top? Not quite. We're like cousins. So market research basically asks people focus on what they say they want, and what we tend to do is we try and dig in more and understand what they need. So market research will ask things like, do you like this website? How much would you pay for this feature? We ask things like, what are you trying to achieve? And why did you slam your laptop shut and scream into the void trying to check out just now? Anyone that's probably used the Ryanair website can probably sympathize. Optional add-ons page, anyone? Anyway, now that's cleared up. Let me explain how we can facilitate product development alongside UX design. Spoiler alert, it's at every phase. So very briefly, to take you through, we've got the design phase, where I can uncover user needs, pain points, and their goals, or what we call jobs to be done. In the explore phase, where we go wide and ideate, we can also basically test high-level concepts and also sense check if the user understands the concept and content. In the define phase, the right solution that's aligned with product and business goals, we can feed in with user-led insights for product requirements and user flows. In delivery, of course, it's user-centric because we're engaging with the users. And we also have tactical solutions. What we want to do here is understand user satisfaction, and we can validate the designs through things like usability testing. Finally, release phase, it's a test and learn. It's an iterative process. We gather user feedback, but we also uncover new opportunities through that process. So while we optimize through user feedback, we can also identify future opportunities that will feed back into the loop, back into the understand phase. Now, the last thing I want to talk about before handing back over to Efi for a while is driving feature development through UXR. So the first thing I want to talk about is user goals and behaviors. The research basically revealed that their motivations center around inspiration and information rather than direct shopping, impacting design feature. This makes sense. We're a publication first, not thought of as a shopping destination. It's a newer function for our brand. Next up, we've got design optimization. So basically, we've uncovered insights that ensure users find and focus on content that educates and aids discovery of additional relevant content, which builds brand trust in a context manner. We're obviously very established brands in our own right, but in a context of commerce, we want to build that trust. This obviously leads to increased engagement and, of course, click-through rate. Lastly is shopping confidence. So users highlight things that they prioritize, features such as category links and contextual content, specifically as well around product cards. These were highlighted as key to building buyer confidence, and thus, of course, when you improve their confidence, you improve conversion. Back over to you, Efi.
So speaking about design testing framework, Some of our work is focusing on future features and doing big launches, and we always work with continuous deployment, so we launch with test in a live environment very often, and we continuously improve. However, another big part of the work that we do is optimize continuously our articles, which is our DNA. And it's also the kind of work that cuts across every single brand. We have brands that are non-commerce and brands that are commerce. So with that in mind, focusing on articles is something that is looking at how users who are coming to us to consume content behave versus the ones who are coming to consume products, and where is the crossover. So we did run a really big project which was looking at optimization of our business as usual, of our day-to-day multiply utilized designs that were driven by data and research-informed, and a research-informed tasting framework, and the key elements of that was looking at where we place links in the layout, how we introduce the content of the article, and how the users interact, and how to get them from the first viewport to be interested enough to scroll and read the rest of the article and look at the products along the way. And part of the objective of this work was to drive incremental growth, so to optimize every single feature that we have on each one of our articles. And also, very often what we do is we have 3 different story types. So we tend to create articles that are single product reviews, single category reviews, or multiple category reviews. So most of our commerce articles tend to fall into these categories, be it looking at a specific product, or be it a trend guide or a gift guide, or an inspirational piece. It tends to focus on these different areas. So with that in mind, what we do is we surface different layouts that speak about the same type of content, and then we look for success patterns between them and how the users are responding to each and every different layout permutation on the same topic. And examples of these are for tables of contents using jump links, sectioning the articles, and creating efficient navigation. And part of what we do is introduce the features, observe how the users behave on the site, but also speak to them to fully understand what are the needs, where are we succeeding in catering for these needs, and when we are failing, and how can we optimize better. Because our thinking is always that our best design is the one that we will design tomorrow. So we are constantly trying to make improvements and optimize further.
Right,
Back to Luke.
Thank you. I'm going to talk you through some of the research projects that helped inform this framework. So it's worth noting, I hold my hands up, that these projects were not conducted at the same time as a design framework project. But the business world doesn't always wait for perfectly timed frameworks, right? So sometimes you've got to get a little creative. We had real-time constraints and business needs, so flexibility was key. But don't worry, we didn't just wing it. We kept users at the heart of the process, integrating their feedback along the way. It wasn't about ditching best practice, but blending them with practical quick wins like the design framework project. And remember as well, so I'm going to talk to you soon about these projects, that exploratory research, foundational research, isn't a one-off. So the foundational insights, such as jobs to be done, which I will explain, keep shaping decisions long after the initial project was executed. So briefly, just to take you through the 2 main projects that were referenced, we've got foundational commerce research. So it was essentially to understand the consumer shopping behavior on Condé Nast context. We had objectives to measure basically our influence on their shopping, barriers to shopping on Condé Nast, and explore the impact of product type and presentation and what impacts that has on purchases. Commerce storytelling focused just on that, basically the role of storytelling in engagement, and we were also looking to improve the commerce experience with user-centered design. Our objectives here were to understand the article effectiveness while uncovering what those needs were while they were engaging with the articles, to define, refine, and build out the jobs to be done. In a nutshell, a job to be done is like a user goal with additional context. So for example, a goal is larger than just the touch points they engage with, like our website. So the goal might be avoid the dentist, keep my teeth healthy. The need that they have is to find the right electric toothbrush, so they will come to our websites like Wired, for example, to explore the best electric toothbrushes to purchase. So with that in mind, we also wanted to obviously understand how we could optimize the article templating in response to their user needs. Now the methodologies for both of these were mixed. We had combined, there was about 53 in-depth interviews across multiple brands like Vogue, Allure, GQ and Wired. And we also had touchpoint surveys with a tool called Hotjar. So surveys would trigger on-site, we'd capture real user intent at the time they were engaging with our brands. So I'm briefly going to give you some insights that kind of highlighted problems to solve that fed into the design framework. So first, how we support the table of contents with section links. So some of the things that came up were users expressed the need for easy navigation, especially when content was lengthy or covered multiple product categories. Also, when we were asking them about their typical engagement with our brands, they noted that they skim the article typically with the goal of assessing if it aligns with their needs. Now encapsulating that, a quick little quote from a Vogue user, where they said, I tend to like a cleaner layout. It's easier to navigate. I like how the color palettes are grouped in this article. It makes it easier to take in. It would be great to see the categories at a glance. Now, as well as those insights, we also noticed that users highlight the need for quick access to specific sections, particularly within trend guides, so something like spring trends, or gift guides, so jewelry, for example. Also the introduction of category links, which allows them to quickly navigate down to the particular categories within the article, allow them to jump to those sections, and improved overall navigation and engagement or scroll depth, so how far down into the article they went. And encapsulating that again, a little quote about a useful change a user would like to see from Vogue. Maybe having some sort of index at the beginning or links that you could just jump to that section would make it easier to navigate. I'm going to hand back over to Efi to talk about design and of course impact.
So you see an example of the design that has been implemented for Vogue. I think what becomes really interesting for us is that the users tell us that they want return on investment, and by that they mean before they commit to reading an entire article, they want to know what is in the article. So as part of that, since this is their primary requirement, and we know that they like to skim through before they commit to read in a slower pace, we give them a section that tells them what is in the article really quickly. Then we saw that using jump links that were taking the users inside the different sections of the article is in effect like being inside the lift, and you get shortcuts to deeper sections of the article. So we created design optimizations that allow us to combine the two components. In this example, you see them separated. So what we have created is we have created a powerful component that has an optimizable layout that depending on which areas an editor activates, you can have 20 different layout permutations. For example, you can see a version that has jump to review. If there is a review, there is another one that says jump to collection. So if the article is featuring trends, each trend is grouped together into a collection. So the user can go to a specific product, to a product section, to a product category, and there are different ways of visualizing that depending on which brand is featuring the component. Also, it gives us the option to utilize it for articles that are non-commerce by taking a user, for example, every so often we have a new issue of Vogue or of other of our printed publications that is coming out, and the users want to know very quickly what is within the most recently released issue, and this is the kind of component they utilize for that. And then it was really fascinating for us to discuss with the users the placement of these components. So we were debating whether a user needs an introduction to the article before they see what is in it, and the user said, no, we want to see straight away what is in the article before we even make a commitment to read the intro. So we gave them that. And then the second component is a product summary grid. So at a glance, the user, especially if the user has been revisited the article, a user who has read already the article once wants to go really quickly and see the editor picked curated products, and they can see that right at the top of the article. So within two viewports, they can see what is in the article, especially if the article is long, and also which are the top products. And because numbers are king when it comes to commerce, this is how we measure impact and performance. Of course, speaking to the users is really important, but sometimes we find that what the users tell us and what they do kind of doesn't align. So we see that we have 35% higher click-through for the users who have engaged in the section links, and also incorporating these links is expecting to increase collectively the clicks to 60% and 22% on sales. And already introducing this component, we see that our assumptions are being validated by the results.
Right, I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to speed through this. But essentially, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how UX research supported the implementation of multiple buy buttons. So again, going back to commerce storytelling, as we've mentioned several times now, the jobs to be done, their goals, tend to circle around inspiration and information. They use the guides basically as a source to understand how a product will fit into their routine, how to use a product, or how to style something when it comes to fashion. I'm going to skip the quote, but basically a user here just mentions that they like to understand how they can identify what a trend is using Vogue. Other foundational research also told us that the users often leave our websites to price check. So of the users that indicate they engage with our affiliate partner links, 19% of them leave to price check, and as a result obviously buy elsewhere. There's also, out of 20 interviews that were conducted, 12 of the users did not have the perception that Condé Nast was a place to shop. Finally, users also indicated during interviews that they suspected products featured were sponsored. Now, there's a little quote here about a user that didn't buy a beauty tool called a Solowave because they like to bargain hunt. They went to Google to price check and then buy somewhere else. And the classic lines basically of TFL, mind the gap. How do we address that? Obviously there's a couple of things here. We've got to overcome perception, price checking, and basically viewing us as somewhere you can shop. So I'm going to hand back over to Efi to discuss design implementation and impact.
So again, looking at this component, the number one reason why a user will leave our site is to do price comparison. So giving them 3 CTAs, which very often feature different prices, creates this level of integrity. The users are telling us that they trust us to inspire them and to propose a specific product to buy, but then in order to feel confident enough to buy it via our website and clicking through the affiliate links, they need to have alternative retailer options. They say that when they just see one link, that doesn't instill them with trust. They don't trust that this is the cheaper price or the best, for example. So by giving them 3 alternative, or sometimes even more, retailers to purchase from, it instills trust in them, especially when the prices vary between the CTAs. Usually we tend to have the highest performing retailer on top, but then the user has the opportunity to choose for themselves where to purchase from. And sometimes we will also start highlighting why we are promoting a specific retailer even if the price is higher. For example, they might have free delivery, or they are our proposed retailer because they have a more ethical approach to shopping. So we will really validate the reason why we are promoting a specific retailer if we choose to do so, or like in this example, we will just give them the 3 or 4 different retailers and they can choose for themselves what to do with the next step. And back to Luke. And also the numbers, of course. So we had 41 increase in unique visitors to retailer links just by providing a higher number of CTAs. And we had a 70% increase in commissions from our retailer partners.
Okay, so we're going to take a little more of a zoomed in singular project, essentially around a unified product card. So a product card is obviously the housing for where the products that are featured in our articles live. So the reason we say unified is because we wanted to basically make it brand agnostic. And basically the objectives of this project for research was to understand their needs, their goals, their motivations, and understand what was the right balance of information that they needed across different verticals. So obviously tech, beauty, and fashion. We also wanted to understand the varying expectations of what the product card would contain in the context of a publication versus a dedicated e-commerce website, and also if our brand authority influenced essentially how they shopped on our site. So again, user interviews, and we're of time, so I'm just going to very quickly say what we noticed problems to solve were things like they needed high-level categorization to understand essentially if it was fit for their needs, so at a sweeping glance they could determine if the product featured aligned with their needs. This comes up a lot. Multiple images and videos were obviously very important to understand fit, style, texture, and quality, particularly for fashion users. Editorial endorsement and ratings were obviously important as well. They basically provided trust for the product validation. And lastly, pros and cons. Users sought to assess benefits and drawbacks in other words, to simplify decision making. Not going to go through the quotes, but just one briefly from Wired saying, editor input is very important. It's very hard to figure out quality, but Wired does that for you. Now, going to hand back over to Efi. We're nearly at time.
So you can see the design speaking for themselves. We have simple product cards, but also enhanced product cards that have detailed reviews and rating. We feature videos in some of them. As you know, with the recent changes in Google search. Quite a lot of our traffic is coming via Google, and product cards and articles that feature videos, especially IRL, user-created, generated content as well, features higher, ranks higher. This is what our users are requiring, and this is what we give them. We don't do it for all the products. We have the hero products, the editor-picked one, having this level of detail, and then alternative options featuring further down in the page. And again, the numbers speak for themselves. We really see the users responding. The more detail we give them, especially when the article is comparing products against one another, the more they feel confident to push through and engage with a purchase. And we also, engage with our content design team. We use different language. For example, here we have pros and cons. We use things like what is worth noting about a product versus what is worth to consider. So sometimes in fashion we use language that is a lot softer, and we are continuously testing how the users respond to the linguistic aspects of the product card. Finally.
Okay, so just to kind of wrap up, I'm just going to take you through the first two, which is shopping intent should guide curated experiences. What I mean is users have varied goals. Understanding them, such as inspiration versus direct product information, and catering to them ensures broader appeal and improves conversion rates. Harness commerce value with user feedback. Of course, I'm going to evangelize this, but it enables us to design experiences that exceed expectations and also informs critical decisions like shopping intent and also context like article type. By optimizing every user and touch point, we enhance satisfaction and unlock greater revenue potential. Over to
So optimizing buyer confidence through endorsement and education from experts. Users come to us because we are the experts, we know fashion, they come for the recommendations, but also this expertise needs to be validated. We need to be very specific. How many hours did we spend testing a product? Why do we recommend a particular designer? These things need to be made really, really explicit, especially when there is TikTok nowadays, social media, where they also find a lot of more unfiltered content that users generate that give them similar type of information. The users are making a lot of comparisons, so we need to be really careful what we recommend and how. Prioritize brand trust for long tail impact and sustain engagement. So users feel like they built a long-term relationship with our editors. They refer to them sometimes by name. They have a very strong social media presence. So they see the relationship they develop through the articles and the buyers as something that is a long-term investment. They keep coming back to read the articles that have been produced by a specific author. They look at the editor-curated product lists. So we need to make sure that the special thing we have is this relationship and trust. This is what we invest on. This is what we always need to commit to. And finally, strength through collaboration with user research is key. I mean, to sum it up, the reality is that if the users are happy, the business is happy.
Or, in other words, shops. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have run out of time for questions.
I think we have.